Lately, one of your frequently asked questions has been about how to take new habits from the practice room to the bandstand. Another has been about how to protect your hearing. Those two aren't as unconnected as you may think. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Brian from Airflow Music. Alongside publishing our books for brass players, we're producing a bunch of videos with tips to make brass playing easier for you. So if you're new here, please subscribe to the Airflow Music channel so you're notified of all of our videos. I think it's fairly well established that we should be focusing on our sound when we're practicing. If we can not only execute cleanly but also do it with a beautiful sound, then we're going to be in pretty good shape as trumpet players. I mentioned in the last Trumpet Pro Tips video that it's a good idea to record yourself from time to time. What I didn't say as clearly as I might have liked is that that's important because otherwise we don't really know how we sound. The way we sound from in front of the bell can be noticeably different to what we hear from behind. That's partly related to the topic of this video. To my mind, another thing we should be focusing on beside our sound is how it feels to play. Developing an awareness of the sensations associated with the physical side of playing can have a number of benefits, including helping with the questions I mentioned. These sensations include the amount of mouthpiece pressure, how the rest of your embouchure feels, how hard you may be blowing, and where you're applying compression from, that sort of thing. I'll break the benefits into three groups. Self-diagnosing problems. Having a sense of how it feels to play things can be really helpful for problem solving, either in the practice room or on the bandstand. There are three main components that go into making a musician: mastery of the physical, mental and spiritual aspects of playing your instrument. For the purposes of this video, and for most of the videos, I'm mostly talking about the physical component. Being sufficiently aware of this can be incredibly helpful for self-diagnosis when things aren't going quite right. Of course, one also feeds into the others. If the physical side is going well, then the mental side is freer to function well too, taking care of the things that you have to think about as you play, like reading music, deciphering whatever it is that the conductor's doing, and the other things that need to be addressed in order to execute what you're playing. If it's not, worries and concerns about why you're not physically executing can overwhelm your concentration. In turn, if the mental or intellectual part of playing is going smoothly, then you have the best chance of opening the path for the spiritual, so the emotional context and content can come out in the performance. If you're overwrought mentally because the physical is not going well, or because of nerves, or anything else that may lessen your confidence, then the spiritual becomes challenging too. As usual, it's a question of balance. This may be a slightly long-winded justification, but if you can develop that awareness of the physical aspect while you're practicing, then it can make it much easier to make the necessary adjustments and get back on track and rebalance. Transferring new skills from the practice room to the bandstand. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that a number of you have reached out for advice lately, since you've experienced improvements in the practice room as a result of the approaches I've been sharing in these videos the past few months, but have struggled to maintain the new approach on the bandstand. This goes along partly with what I was just talking about, the problem solving or troubleshooting. If you have an awareness for what playing in the new way feels like compared to the old, then it can be easier to transfer to a different environment. Now, this is also partly down to how well established new habits are, and you should remember that establishing a new habit does take time. The main thing that tends to derail people in a different playing environment is the sound, and particularly the difference in volume and projection that you may experience. This is where playing somewhat by feel can be very useful. It may require a little rebalancing to begin with, in order to meet the requirements of the people you're playing with or playing for, but that tends to be a fairly quick adjustment. Focusing on the feel should allow you to play easier while you get used to it. It also brings me to my next subject. Protecting your hearing. This may seem to come a little out of left field, but please stay with me for a moment. One of the big challenges we face as brass players is when we have to play in very loud environments, particularly with lots of amplified instruments. In order to hear ourselves, we obviously need our ears to work. When we're in very loud environments, it's a good idea to protect our ears with earplugs, to cut down on physical damage that can be caused by high decibel levels. Particularly if you're new to playing with earplugs in, it can be a confusing and sometimes unpleasant experience. The first thing to say is that, like anything else, playing with earplugs in is a skill, and it does get easier with practice. If you expect to be playing in a loud environment at some point, it's worthwhile to spend some time practicing with the earplugs in so you can get used to it. One thing that makes it much easier is the ability to play by feel. You see, I told you it was related. With many types of earplugs, you hear a lot of inside the head sound, along with a more muffled sound of your instrument. This can be very distracting at first, particularly if you're very reliant on hearing yourself as you play. To preempt the question I'm sure a number of you will ask, the best earplugs that I've found for playing come from a company called Flare Audio. They're isolates. These earplugs are a little bit different, as they're made of metal with a foam tip. I happen to have the aluminium ones. The foam tipped end goes in your ears to create a comfortable seal. The information on their website about how they work doesn't entirely make sense to me, but what I can tell you is they do take all the harshness out of surrounding loud sounds and allow you to play with much less inside the head sound than any other variety of foam or rubber earplug that I've tried. I also find that I can hear myself quite clearly. I'm not getting any kind of kickback for saying this. I'm genuinely a consumer of their product, and I'm recommending them because I use them and like them. They're also not terribly expensive. I got mine on Amazon for about $35 here in the US, and they're still at that price at the time I made this video. I'll post a link to them in the description. Whether you're playing with earplugs or not, in a situation where you have a microphone and monitors, you can do everybody a favour by staying out of them. This is easy for me to say since I can comfortably play by feel alone, and I understand that comparatively few people agree with me on this. Doing so keeps the volume down for everyone else, and the lower pitched horns who have to share the middle and low registers with practically every other instrument on the stage have a better chance of hearing themselves. Overall, the best way to protect your hearing is to bring the volume down. One final tip for loud and amplified environments: try and establish a rapport with whoever is operating the sound desks. Reason for this is simple: whether you're heard out front or in the monitors is really in their hands. Generally, if you can remain polite and patient, and be clear about what you need, you have a better chance of getting it. I hope you found this helpful. Please hit that like button, it does make a big difference if you do, and subscribe to the Airflow Music channel if you haven't already. I'm going to be back on Monday with another exercise of the week, and again next Friday with more trumpet pro tips. In the meantime, please visit airflowmusic.com and check out the various books, exercises and other merchandise we have on offer. All sales directly support making these videos. I'll see you next time. Until then, go practice.